Welcome back to section 3 of plant and animal cells. Today we're going to continue taking notes just like we've done in the previous 2 sections. So if you don't have your notes and a pencil, you're probably going to need to get those items. Our first part today is the lysosome. And the lysosome is right here. It's completely spherical and it's only found in the animal cell. Now I know that there are some circles down here and they represent other organelles and they are never ones that you would be asked to identify. So don't let that confuse you. It's a spherical, that means it's shaped like a ball, organelle that digests nutrients in old cell parts. And this is a pretty cool part because we see it in action in different ways, but it's very necessary in animal cells to have them be able to do this. A tadpole tail is digested by the lysosome. So as that tadpole tail starts to dissolve and it seems to just disappear, it's actually being digested. And then the nutrients that the lysosomes are able to get out of that are used to help that critter continue to develop and grow the way it needs to. It is located in the cytoplasm. That means it's between the cell membrane and the nuclear membrane, and it's found in animal cells only. Our next cell part is the centrosome, kind of like the center of the universe. It's the sun. Right here is the centrosome. The centrosome. And it looks like the sun, the center of our universe. It's a small body. You notice that there are other cell parts that are quite a bit larger than it. That has radiating tubules. And don't let tubules confuse you. It's just tiny tubes. Okay? And it helps with cell division. Those little tubules send out little like strings. And it helps pull your genetic material apart once it's been copied in the cell so that the cell can continue to divide. It is located near the nucleus. Obviously, it's going to be separating your chromosomes, and it is found in both plant and animal cells. Our next part is the chloroplast, and it is right here. And there's several of them in here, but this is the arrow. You'll notice that the animal cell doesn't have them. And the chloroplast looks like it has little 8s on it. Do you see the little 8s in the chloroplast down here? This is our chloroplast. Okay, and I always tell people that it ate the sun because this is the part that uses sunlight to help make food, which is the basic idea behind it, for the cell. Now, we don't use sunlight. Animals don't use sunlight to make food. So that tells you right now that it's only going to be found in plant cells. It's a disc-shaped organelle that contains chlorophyll. So the substance that's in it is chlorophyll, and chlorophyll's job is to trap the sunlight. And it's where photosynthesis takes place. Photosynthesis is the process that turns sunlight into food. It makes most plants green, but not all. It is located in the cytoplasm, and it's found in plant cells only. I apologize that the words are below. Just know that they go in the line above. We just talked about the chloroplast, and our next process is called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process that turns sunlight, that uses sunlight to create food or glucose for the cell. So using sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water, the chloroplast is where it turns it into food and glucose. This always takes place in the chloroplast, so only plants do it. And chlorophyll in the chloroplast captures the sunlight. Obviously, photosynthesis is not found in anything but plants only. So I don't believe that part's on your notes. If it is, just make sure that you circle that it's in plants only. Cellular respiration is our other process. So once we have photosynthesis completed, we have taken sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and put it into the chloroplast, and we get out glucose and oxygen. Then a process called cellular respiration can occur. Now, all cells, doesn't matter what kind they are, have to have cellular respiration going on because this is what provides the energy for the cell. This is a process that all living things go through to create energy to live. This process uses oxygen and glucose to form ATP, and ATP is a form of chemical energy. A common thing between cellular respiration and breathing is that both require oxygen. So when I breathe in O2, which is oxygen, and cellular respiration's process also requires that O2. as well. So when we're breathing, we're actually providing O2 for our cells, oxygen for our cells, so that they can combine with the glucose made by our mitochondria. And we can, in our mitochondria, and turn that into the energy our cell needs. Cellular respiration occurs in the mitochondria. It is done in both plants and animals, and photosynthesis happens in the chloroplast, and only plants do it. Okay, so here is our diagram for cellular respiration and photosynthesis. We're going to start up here with photosynthesis, okay? Now this part only happens in plants, so animals only do the cellular respiration part, okay? But we start with photosynthesis. We need sunlight. That's trapped in the chlorophyll, in the chloroplast. It is a form of light energy. Photosynthesis gives off two products. It gives off oxygen and it gives off glucose, okay? Glucose and oxygen. So photosynthesis makes glucose and oxygen. Glucose and oxygen then become part of the cellular respiration process. Cellular respiration is making ATP, which is a type of chemical energy that your cell and bodies need in order to do the basic processes: running, jumping, walking, standing, sitting, sleeping, all those little things that we do, blinking. All of that requires ATP. Now, cellular respiration puts off two products. Besides the ATP that it puts off, it's going to put off carbon dioxide, and it's also going to put out water. Carbon dioxide and water then are taken into the plant, into the chloroplast, and they are necessary mixed with the sunlight to have photosynthesis occur. So this whole thing just keeps circling around and around and around and around and around in a plant. Now in an animal, it happens just right down here. These things go in, these things come out. We exhale this, okay? And we do just this part. But plants do this all. So you can see that in plants, this is a pretty symbiotic relationship. That means one requires the other. They rely on each other for the things that they need. All right, so what's the chemical formula for photosynthesis? We're going to start there. This is kind of looking like math, and that's what a chemical formula is. And it's a balanced chemical formula. Remember, there are two things we need for photosynthesis to happen. We're going to need carbon dioxide. As a matter of fact, we need 6 carbon dioxides. Plus, we need 6 molecules of water, 6 H2Os. Then we mix in our sunlight in the chloroplast, and the sunlight has been trapped by the chlorophyll, and we get out 2 products from this. We get out glucose, C6H12O6, and we get out our other product, oxygen, 6 O2s. So that's the chemical formula for photosynthesis. Now, these objects are going to be needed in cellular respiration. So they're going to come right down here. We're going to get glucose plus our 6O2, and that should be a 6O2. Please correct that on your notes. We don't have anything here except the chemical reaction that happens between those two in the mitochondria, and we get 6CO2. Make sure you add a 6 in front of this. That's our carbon dioxide, plus our 6H2O, which is our water. Plus we get one other thing, and that's the ATP, and that's our energy, that chemical energy that we need to do all the things that we do. Once again, I want to remind you, in front of this, make sure there's a big 6. In front of this, make sure there's a big 6. And in front of this, make sure there's a big 6. Okay, in order for a living thing to continue, it has to reproduce or make more of its own. And there are 2 types of reproduction. The first type of reproduction we're going to talk about is asexual reproduction, and it happens when a living thing makes an exact copy of itself. So this usually is in bacteria, and the bacteria just completely copies itself and splits in half. Basically, one organism becomes 2. The other type of reproduction is sexual reproduction, and this occurs when genetic material comes from two parents. So I get part from mom, part from dad. They combine to make a new thing. A cell that contains only half the genetic material needed to make a new organism, so like from mom or dad, that's called a gamete cell. And two gamete cells unite to form a zygote. Living things have DNA. We know DNA is what makes up our chromosomes. And if something changes the DNA, we call it a mutation. Mutations are passed to living things' offspring. That means that if there's a mutation in your genes, you have the chance of passing that on. And mutations must occur in a gamete, that's that half genetic cell, in order for it to affect the new organism during sexual reproduction. When that mutation is passed on, it becomes known as an adaptation. Now, there are 3 adaptations that we can have, and they're just basically 3 different ways of looking at this mutation. So adaptations can be useful if they increase the survival or reproduction of a living thing. Let's say that we have a moth and it's brown and it lives in the trees. Well, trees are green, and this moth has a mutation that is passed on and becomes an adaptation that made it green. This is useful because now it matches the leaves of the tree, and therefore its survival and its reproduction are probably going to increase. Now, it can be harmful if it would decrease the survival or reproduction of a living thing. Let's think about that same moth. It's green. Well, if all of a sudden that moth decides to start living on the bark and it's green, well, the adaptation has now become harmful because it's more visible. And it can be neutral if it neither increases or decreases the survival or reproduction of a living thing. It's just a change. We'll look at a couple of neutral adaptations in different organisms. Maybe it is a dog being born without its front legs, but that dog still learns how to walk on its back leg, then it's neutral. It didn't increase or decrease its chance of survival. It was able to do everything it needed to do. That makes it neutral. So, genetic and environmental factors can affect the survival of a species. So it's not just what we get from our parents. It's also what's going on around us. Body shape is a great example of a genetic thing that we get from our parents, and we're predisposed to have this type of a genetic body shape. Now, our environment, maybe we live in a place where there's all these fast food restaurants and we're always eating out. Well, we might tend to gain weight. That's going to change. That's the environment changing our body shape. Or maybe we live in an environment where we are constantly doing hard physical labor and we're exercising all the time, and our body shape, even though it's predisposed to be maybe heavier, becomes more slender and more muscular because of that environment that we're working in. So that's how environment can affect the survival of a species. Okay, on your plant cell diagram, please fill in the purple and do the purple on your animal cell. And on your study guide, you should mark with a square tabs 2 and 9 on the animal cell and 7 and 11 on the plant study guide.